In this video, I'm going to add the most overpowered anime skills into my game. You see, I'm trying to prove that monetization systems are ruining games so much that even a beginner solo developer can make a better game if they just focused on the gameplay instead of making as much money as possible. Last time, I managed to make an unplayable roguelike thing, which is supposed to be inspired by solo leveling, but the game feels really boring right now, and I think the main reason for this is the enemies. They're really not interesting at all, and they don't even work properly. This makes the combat feel awful, but when I tried to fix this, I ran into a really big issue. The way that I made the enemy behavior last time was so bad that for every little change I wanted to make, I needed to go through my entire script and try to understand my code every single time because there was no structure and it was filled with random if statements. Because of that, I finally researched online how to make enemy behavior, and it turns out there are 4 ways you can make that. There are 3 smart ways and 1 super dumb way, and can you guess which one I was using? Now that I knew I had other options, I decided to use state machines for the enemies. I started to design a state machine for the melee enemies, which was basically find the target, chase the target, attack the target, and repeat. After this, I finally changed the attack indicators because they felt a little bit too hard to read and annoying to look at. Even though the combat felt kind of good now, I also needed to fix the ranged enemies, because currently they just stand in one place and shoot you like a turret. So I rewrote the entire ranged enemy script from unstructured mode behavior to using state machines. And I know what you're thinking. Why are you using separate scripts for the ranged and melee enemies? Can't you use one for both? Yeah, I can, but I'm sure that's not going to be a problem. I just need to change both scripts for every minor change to the enemies. That's not going to be annoying and confusing at all. Anyway, after that, I decided to add a couple of new enemy variants to try out the combat, and even though the combat felt a little bit better, it's still terrible. I guess enemies weren't the problem after all. I guess it was the player. The last episode, I added a dash and a parry and tied them up to a stamina system, but because of that, you can just spam dashes and parries, which is not really engaging, so I completely removed the stamina and added a cooldown to the parry and the dash instead to make the game more challenging. But to add skill expression to the game, I also made the parry reset its cooldown if you successfully parry. Now that I thought I understood how to use state machines, I also decided to completely rewrite my player script from unstructured to a state machine behavior. This took me way more time than I expected, and it was way harder than doing it to the enemies, but it hopefully helps me out in the long run. Yeah, I'm totally not coping because I spent almost a week on this. After all of that, the combat does feel better, but the more enemies you fight, the worse the game feels. It's too chaotic and you can't track what's happening. So to fix this, I decided to add a stagger on your main attack when you hit an enemy. This made the main attack finally useful and made it fun if you're outnumbered. Also, I immediately saw why using state machines is worth it. I just needed to add a new state called staggered in the enemy state machines, and I had it working without any headaches. Also, in the last episode, I added these runes that basically gave you a skill, and depending on the category, it was either an offensive skill, a dash modifier, or a utility skill. This felt really awful because you didn't really have a dash until you get a dash rune, and also the utility skills were completely useless. So I removed the categories, and now the player has a dash from the beginning and only has offensive runes, but to compensate for this, now he can hold 2 offensive abilities at the same time. I also thought that this way players can find unique ways to combine 2 different abilities, which would add even more skill expression to the game. Now that I reworked the runes, it was finally time to add the enemy skills as offensive runes. I decided on 5 skills that I thought would fit the game the best, and the first one is... The first thing I did was work on the runes that indicate where the spell will be cast. I made the sprite for the rune and made it into a particle in Unity. Also, I needed to make some VFX for the explosion after. I tested it out and I had a lot of fun with it, but it didn't feel like a Megamin spell. It was too small, so I made it 5 times stronger, and yeah, this feels way better. The next one I wanted to do is the punch from One Punch Man. And yeah, this is supposed to be a fist. Don't laugh. When I added it into the game, I wanted it to be strong, but to compensate, I made the range extremely low. You can also weave main attacks, which makes it kinda cool. I feel like this is definitely the worst one though, but I'll keep it for now because it looks kinda goofy. For the next one, I didn't want to do a specific skill from a singular anime, but add something that a lot of anime characters can do, that I call the Fury Slash. You know that move where they just randomly swing their katanas like maniacs? Yeah, that one. I started by making the effects for the spell. Now I needed to make the spell deal damage continuously while enemies are in it. Luckily, Unity has a function called on-trigger-stay, which happens every frame if the enemies are in the collision. This is perfect, right? And it randomly stops working after 20 to 30 frames. I tried fixing the problem for like 3 hours, thinking of some insane algorithms in my brain, but it turns out that the issue was that the rigid body decides not to work. Why? I don't know, it probably watched my other videos and fell asleep from boredom. I added this legendary line and everything works now. Anyway, I needed to add 2 more skills, which are going to be a little harder to add. I started with my favorite skill, which is piercing blood. I wanted it to be more unique, so I made it chargeable. The idea is you can either press the button as normal and you send out a small weak projectile, or you hold the button for some time and then when you release it, you send out an insane projectile that pierces through enemies. Also, I added lifesteal to the skill. I don't really know why. I mean, it's supposed to be your blood that you're using, so it would make more sense to lose HP instead of healing, but like... The last one is hopefully going to be the coolest one, because this is the most overpowered spell I've seen in an anime recently, and I really want it to be strong in my game as well. The idea is to make it cast for quite some time, and it would take a lot of resources to use, but it would be extremely deadly if you manage to get the cast off. I started by making a sprite for the bow, and made a little animation when you try to cast the ability. And if you manage to cast it, yeah, it's extremely overpowered. And to make it feel even better, I made it so that you can cancel the ability with a dash, or an attack, or a parry, and that was again thanks to the state machine. Anyway, the big bow feels great, and I had a lot of fun playing with the new spells, but I kind of used a lot of time to make everything up until now, so the next things I did are kind of rushed and still in progress, because I wanted these videos to show around 25 days amount of work, and I had like 1 or 2 days left, so just keep that in mind. Okay, since the game is supposed to be inspired by solo leveling, I kind of have to add the summoning in some way or another, but I didn't want it to be the main option, so I decided to add the summoning as a class mechanic. So yeah, I guess I'm making classes now. I decided to make a class for every stat in the game that would work very well with that stat. Like for an example, the summons you summon as a summoner will scale with your max HP, so you want to level vitality for that. I could make the summoning mechanic in a lot of different ways, but decided to tie it up to the skills you have, aka every spell type will have a completely unique summon you spawn when you use it. I think this will be the most balanced way to do it, but anyway, now I need to actually make you summon when you use a spell. It works pretty well for now, but I think I need to add a limit to how much you can have at a time, because yeah. Also, remember in the beginning of the video where I did the enemy state machines in separate scripts? Yeah, well, if I didn't do that, I would be able to just make a very simple summon script that inherits from an enemy script or from an entity script. But to do this now, I need to rewrite the code again, so I guess I'll have fun with that next time. Anyway, it's very scuffed, and to finish the video this year, I moved on to making 2 other classes. I made a rogue, which gets more damage after a dash, and a mage, which deals more damage to stunned enemies. I have some more ideas for them in the future, but this was pretty much what I could do in the 2 days I had left. This is how the game feels after all this. To be honest, it doesn't really look that much different from the first episode, but I think I learned how to write clean and reusable code, which is super important, and because of that, I will be able to do way more next time. Also, I decided to limit the amount of time I have on this project because I don't want to be stuck in feature creep and never releasing the game. So I have exactly 4 devlogs on this game, and each one will show around 25 days of progress. Anyway, these 2 videos show the first 50 days, and I'm pretty happy with the game so far. I think I can definitely finish the game in just 2 more videos, so you guys can try out the game as soon as possible. Anyway, thank you for watching the whole video, and if you want to watch another one, I'd recommend this one.